today's Warzone video, I'm going to give you the top controller settings you guys need to be using. These are going to be my personal settings that I dominate Warzone with that help me get a 4KD and over 1,000 plus wins. If you haven't enjoyed today's video, give it a like, subscribe with notifications turned on, and let's hop into this. All right, so for the first thing here we're going to be getting into, and that's going to be the graphics section. So of course I play on PC, so I'm not going to actually go through this and like show you guys like a whole bunch of stuff because this is more or less dedicated to controller people and stuff like that, people that are going to be on console, but more or less this is going to be what I'm just going to be playing with here. I of course have an Omen 27 IPS monitor here. I have an NVIDIA GeForce RTX 2080 Ti in my computer. So I actually did just upgrade and buy another PC, so I'll have a dual PC setup, so this will change a little bit. 165 hertz refresh rate. I play on 1440p, which definitely is a huge upgrade, by the way, from 1080p. It actually makes quite a big difference. And then of course, you guys can just go down here and see some of the stuff. A 61.23 brightness, no real reason behind that, it just kind of works for me, so I just kind of keep it there. And that's really about it as far as the quality stuff goes here. This is where we actually should probably take a little bit more of a look here. That's because I actually play on 120 FOV. As you guys know, that on console you can't play at 120 FOV. The maximum you get is like about 80. And so if you guys want to be able to play 120, you have to go over to PC. But I do believe Modern Warfare 2, when it comes out later this year, at least on PS5 and Xbox Series X, that will have the ability to have 120 FOV on console, much like you do for Vanguard right now on console, and also Cold War and stuff like that. But anyways, I play on 120. I have the affected field of view, which means my gun doesn't zoom in as much. If I played on independent, that pretty much make it so that I played from 120, and every time I zoom in, I go down to 80 FOV. So when I play on independent, that keeps me kind of zoomed out, and thus it makes kind of my guns look like they have a little bit less recoil than they actually do. It's just more of a visual glitch or a visual like effect than anything. It's not necessarily like my guns have less recoil. It's just because stuff is more zoomed out. So that's really about it. Also, camera movement, you got to turn that down all the way to the least. You don't want your camera bouncing around. Render resolution's at 100 here because I play on 2560 by 1440. Streaming quality low. I just keep some of this stuff down here just more or less low or disabled. It's really about it. Also, you got to turn off film grain. You don't want any of that stuff. Filmic strength, you want to turn all that off. I have NVIDIA DLSS on here just because single PC setup. Also for console people, even this is for you guys. World motion blur, weapon motion blur, turn that completely off. No reason to have world motion blur. That just kind of distracts you from seeing what's going on around you. As you can see, like it actually will really blur everything out. I'm not sure if it helps out with frame rates or anything like that, but more or less it is going to be very beneficial for you guys not to be using motion blur on your weapons or world. Some people do like YY related stuff. Like you see some of those YY movement videos where people throw on motion blur. That's just an aesthetic thing. It's not like it makes you any better. As far as anything else goes here, I just have some of this stuff just like lower disabled, but let's move on to something else. I feel like this is a pretty crucial setting to be able to show for just literally anybody, and that is the mini-map shape. So you have the option of round and square. If you guys are an actual decent player, you care about being good at the game, you should 100% be running a square mini-map. There's no reason you should be running anything else besides square. This gives you a much better sort of like vision of like what's going on around you. So always go for the square minimap. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. Like seriously, always go for the square. Don't ever go for the circle minimap. Minimap rotation, I just have that enabled, stuff like that. Kill feed, it doesn't really matter too much down here. Also, close buy station on purchase. This is a pretty good one here to be able to have, so you can, if you get your loadout drop, instantly close out the buy. Also, default to focus on first loadout item and drop. I have that disabled because there's times where I don't always want my first thing in my loadout screen to be the thing that I auto select. So, of course, I'm getting my loadout here in a bit of a hectic situation. I'll more or less end up kind of defaulting to the very first one. And sometimes that's not the one I'm trying to get the gameplay with. So I want to be able to, have it not selected. So that way I can have like my second, third, fourth, whatever loadout actually as my preferred one, and it'll just default to, let's say, my third loadout. So always have that disabled. I definitely recommend that. As far as all the rest of the stuff down here goes, it doesn't really matter. There's nothing like crazy in here that you guys need to be aware of. It just kind of is what it is. Some people like to be able to see my my audio settings because like, hey, Chuck, you heard that guy, and I don't really be hearing stuff in Warzone, so like I gotta let y'all know. So I plan boost high. My master volume's only at 30, and this is because that I have an Astro headset. I have an Astro mix amp, which has got its own volume control that is routed in through a unit called the Go XLR, which powers all the audio to my computer. So I have multiple different things channeling the audio, and so it actually sounds quite loud at 30%. If I played on 100, it like literally blow my eardrums out. So this is more of a personal preference thing, but what you guys can take away from it, you don't have all that, is boost high is pretty solid for hearing just like general footsteps and everything. So I'd recommend for you guys to do that. I have my music volume at 0 here, just because also in late game sometimes music will come on and I don't want to hear that. I want to focus on footsteps and everything, so I turn music volume off. Everything else like that, I just have that Juggernaut music is enabled. My hit marker sound is actually classic. I kind of like that. I think it's pretty cool. And then mono audio is disabled because you got to be able to hear stuff, you know, out of your left and right properly. And then, of course, some of the stuff down here is just a little bit more PC specific here. It's like, you know, push to talk, all that sort of stuff. Nothing you guys really need to pay attention to, especially if you're on console. But now let's move over to the controller section, which I'm sure a lot of you guys are really excited about. So my BR button layout is I play on tactical flipped. Basically what this means is that on tactical, you know, I actually crouch and everything, you know, with a melee button. So my R3 is my crouch. Also, what the flipped actually does, you can just flip it here by pressing square on the screen. And if you're on PlayStation, and what that does, that makes it so that you don't use your bottom triggers, your L2 and your R2 for shooting. It allows you to switch it up to your L1 and R1, which in the case of me, for instance, or for pretty much everybody that's got a controller, is that the bottom triggers take a longer time to push in as opposed to, like, you know, just pressing the top triggers. And while I'm at it showing you guys controller stuff, I have a regular Sony DualShock controller here, and I have it just hardwired into my PC because that's the only way I can do it. And also I have the Sony back paddle attachment here, which is pretty much like in a different version of like a Scuff. I got it for like 15 bucks at GameStop. It gives you the back paddles, and that's pretty much all I got. No control freaks, nothing else in here. It's just a basic controller, just because I've gone through enough controllers I decided to go for this, and this is what I rock right now. My stick layout right now, my preset is default. My inverted look here is just disabled. My left and right stick input dead zone, this is a 0.04, and the reason it's this is because I don't have any stick drift. So stick drift happens when you actually are on the game and you can put your controller down, and let's say like you'll start moving ever so slightly, like your guy's moving. That means you have stick drift, and if it gets too bad, then you just have to like pretty much like buy a new controller. There's not really much of a way around it. So if you have no stick drift, the lower the left or right stick dead zone input is great. I mean, just you want to lower that as much as possible to the point where it's not obviously too sensitive, but if you don't have any stick drift, there's no reason to keep it like high. As far as my left and right stick, I mean, it's just, you know, 1.0. Now here's where my actual sensitivity is. So I play on a 6.6 vertical and horizontal sensitivity. This, of course, I mean, if you translate over to console, could be a little bit slower, could be a little bit faster, depending on, you know, of course, the FOV change. But for me right now, I play on a 6.6, and this works out beautifully. I feel like it gives me enough to be able to control my recoil, my shots, to make it look like I'm actually accurate. But it's also not too slow to the point where I can't turn around fast enough. It's a very good happy medium, which allows me to be accurate and have great movement. So that's definitely one of those things. I mean, don't play in 2020. That's not it. Like, no one's real. There's very, very, very few people in the world that will ever be accurate on a 2020. If you want to hit your shots, some of the best players in the world that play Call of Duty, that play Warzone, don't be playing in a high sensitivity. They go for like something that's below a 10. So keep this in mind. Try out a 6.6 if you're kind of in between. I found this because I was watching some other videos on it. I was like, you know, let me give it a shot. Let me see what, you know, some other good guys are using. And I ended up bumping down from an 8.8 down to a 6.6, and it's worked out great. My ADS sensitivity multiplier is a 0.9, pretty much meaning that when you actually have, you know, at a 0.9, it lowers it down even a little bit more when you're aiming in on somebody. I felt like I was overcorrecting a little bit too much or undercorrecting, and I wanted to make sure that my shot was as accurate as possible. So I lowered it down just a little bit to slow me down, and that worked out great. And now I hit a lot more of my shots. This is a pretty big thing. You probably should just adjust this a little bit, try it out for yourself. But 0.9 works out great for me in combo with the 6.6 horizontal and vertical. My custom sensitivity, as per Zoom, is turned off. You don't really need that. That's not much of a thing. Like, just stick with off. My aim response curve type is dynamic here. The reverse S curve mapping for fine aim rate control. I believe this is definitely the way to go here, no matter what. If you're on console, PC with the controller, dynamic is definitely the way to go on this, 100%. Controller vibration is enabled. I just have it enabled because I played with it forever. It doesn't really mess me up. I just kind of have it there. Aim assist is just on standard, by the way, guys. I just play on standard aim assist, traditional aim down sight in your target. I mean, I don't think precision or focusing is the way to go. I believe just standard is the way. There's no, you know, reason for you guys to use anything else. Scale aim assist with FOV. This is actually disabled because I actually don't like it when it scales with the FOV. It felt like it was throwing my shots off a little bit. So definitely, if you guys have this enabled, disable it, and you should probably feel like a little bit more accurate. It may take like a game or something to get used to. You may find a few different things here and there that are different, but overall, I find myself being much more accurate with it disabled. And of course, my weapon mount melee is just ADS and melee. Of course, in my weapon down sight behavior is hold, steady aim behavior is hold, equipment behavior is hold. And my use/reload behavior, this is on contextual tap. And contextual tap is a huge thing for Warzone because you can actually pick stuff up just by tapping on square. For me is what it is. And I can just tap square and I instantly pick something up. Sometimes it kind of gets you a bit of a sticky situation. If you're trying to pick something up, you actually drop your gun. You know, that's one of those very minor times where it will kind of mess with you, but otherwise it is great the other like 95% of the time. So there's no reason you guys should not be running contextual tap. I mean, imagine you drop in, you know, you get down there, you want to pick up the gun, you're in a race with another guy, he's got on regular like hold to, you know, pick up, and you got contextual tap on. As soon as you press square, guns in your hand, boom, you know, you're able to take him out. Or maybe you get unlucky and he melees you, but you guys get the point. It's just the way to go. Armor plate behavior, I have this on apply to all, so that when I hold triangle and I let go, it actually will just apply all of my armor plates. Sometimes I forget that though, and I'm still holding triangle down, just out of like force of habit. My slide behavior is tap here. This is what helps me actually slide cancel on Warzone and also on like Modern Warfare pubs. You have to have this on tap in order to be able to slide cancel properly, because you have to like double tap on your slide stick for me, which is going to be my right trigger or my right stick, and then you have to actually be able to like uncrouch, and it's just like a 3-button combo, and you have to have it on tap in order to be able to do that. My auto move forward is disabled. Attack sprint is just double tap. And of course, my automatic tactical sprint, I actually have on. This is a pretty huge thing because it's going to help you save your sticks on your controllers, just because like you end up getting to a point where like you're just pressing in that button so much that's going to start causing stick drift and wear and tear and everything else like that. And this is going to help, you know, prolong the life of your controller. So definitely have an automatic attack sprint. It's hugely beneficial. And as far as that, I have parachute auto deploy on just because I know I'm stupid and like I will hit the ground and splat. Well, fellas, that's gonna be about it. That's my top tier controller settings. If you guys happen to enjoy today's video, give it a like, subscribe, notifications turned on, and I'll see you all later. Just run up to a cap, don't be Randy, and I'm out. Peace.